What's up guys, I'm Isaac and we're back with another install video, this time at RSG Offroad. I got an RSG Offroad tech with me, Bailey. Bailey, what are we doing today?
Today, we're gonna be putting a set of RSG Metalworks sliders on this 3rd gen Tacoma, and I'll be the one teaching you guys how to do it.
Very nice, let's get to it.
So the tools we'll need to prep the driver's side to put these sliders on. You can use a hand ratchet, but I'm gonna use an electric ratchet with a 12mm socket, a trim panel tool, and a nice new razor blade. So the first thing I'm gonna do on this driver's side is these two little plastic plugs at the very frontmost part of the frame. I'm gonna use the trim panel tool, and I'm gonna go up from the bottom and then kind of work my way around as I pop it out. And then you're not gonna need this, so you can just throw it away. Same with the back one. Kind of get under it. It's okay if they break a little. Pop that out. Then you'll use your razor blade and you'll fold up and you'll cut just the tape right here. And you'll do that in this spot too. Then you'll kind of unfold the tape from the loom a little bit. Get it off of there. Then this piece right here is ready. And then we'll start taking out some little bolts. After we do that, we'll use a 12mm socket, and I'm using an electric ratchet. We'll undo this bolt here for the little wire harness. And then these two little 12mm nuts for the computer box. And hold on to these two nuts that you take off of the computer box. And you can just kind of let the computer box go back. And then that will give you the room to undo these plastic clips and move the brake line out of the way. And to do that, you'll see that it has two little tangs grabbing the frame. Just push on one, push on the clip, push on the other side, and it'll pop right in. Just keep working them down the frame like that until you get to the third one, which is a circle. And once you get to this little circle one, the same thing, you'll just push on the little clip part, apply some pressure, push on the other half, and then it pushes itself into the frame without hurting anything. So the only things we'll have to do on the inside of the driver's side is we're gonna undo this little mount for the brake line, which is another 12mm socket. And then it helps if you have a little extension to get in between there and undo this little plastic guard for the frame. You can sneak this piece out from behind the brake line and then save this because we'll reinstall this. So basically, once you break it up, this is what you're working with, right? You got your nut plates, your standard hardware, your hardware that's gonna go into the tap bolts into the frame itself, and then the nylocks for the back sides of mostly, which will be on the passenger side, and then the little short bolt that goes behind that computer box. Any of the holes on the frame that are bigger than this nut here are the holes that you'll be using these nut plates on. I'm using my lift to help me hold this up. It always helps if you have a friend that can help you get these first couple bolts started. But with my lift holding the back half up, I'm gonna line up this first bolt, which is going into the little wire harness bracket that we undid with a 12mm. And that's a bolt that goes into the frame that's already threaded, and you'll use an M8 bolt into that. Once you get that first bolt up there, it'll really help you get it all lined up to get the rest going. And so on this side, that's actually the only threaded hole that we're gonna use. I always start from the front to the back. On the front two holes in the frame, we're gonna use these nut plates with some of this core standard hardware, and you gotta reach your arm in there to get it in there. But once you get it in there, you'll know you're in the right spot. We keep working our way back. I'm gonna use the shortest bolt that you'll get in the set, and this is what's gonna go on behind that computer box that we pulled on the driver's side. So the studs of the computer box are gonna go through the inside of the frame and to the outside of the slider. So when we do this, we're gonna kind of have to finesse this into the spot gently, but for now it's best if we just leave this dangling until we get more bolts lined up and center it a little better. These back holes are probably the trickier of them, because you kind of got to get your finger up against the gas tank and the frame, and it's kind of tight. And then you want to make sure that all those little plastic lines that we unclipped, you don't accidentally put a hole in, because we're going to want to put those plastic lines back through the frame at every spot we pulled them out at. So make sure everything's all lined up, and then we're even ready to tighten our first bolt here now. Now I'm tightening up this first bolt, and the first bolt I always tighten up is that first threaded bolt in the frame that we started off with, because after I tighten this, I can really fine tune that slider where I want it to be. So I'm using a 13mm on my electric ratchet. You can use a hand ratchet, but just get this one snug. Then once you get that one snug, don't touch anything else before you check the gap between the pinch weld and the actual slider itself. And on this one, I'm sitting at a perfect about a finger's width right there, which you couldn't ask for anything better. And it's gonna follow across on every spot, right? So you wanna make sure that gap is level, and then the slider will just look awesome. But now that we got the slider level, we're ready to tighten the rest of the hardware. Now what we'll do, I'm gonna use a 14mm socket for the standard hardware, and I'm gonna go through and front to back, I'm gonna just tighten these up. All right, so now that we got these bolts finger tight, we're gonna push this brake line back into its little spots that it was guided in by these plastic clips. Get this little computer, and you're gonna get these studs on it, and you're gonna guide them through the frame and through the outside of the slider. Then, once we have that lined up, we save those two nuts that we took off from the outside, get them on there finger tight, and now we're ready to start snugging up the hardware. Then with that wire harness that we cut the tape off of, we're gonna put the P-clamp around it, spin it around, pinch it to where the holes line up, and then with the stud on the slider, we're gonna line up the holes onto that. And then we're gonna use this little 11mm bolt. We're gonna put it on. We'll tighten that up with our ratchet. So now that we finished up everything on the outside, we're gonna come back to the inside, put this little plastic piece in the frame again. That's the driver's side. This little hole here, so this hole's designed for if you're really gonna be wheeling the truck hard. If you are, drill this hole out, and then we sent enough hardware that you can put another bolt and a nylock on there. And then that's just for those people that are really gonna be going out and really testing these sliders for every bit they're worth. Now we're gonna start on the passenger side. To start getting the passenger side ready, we'll need a trim panel tool, a ratchet or an electric ratchet, whichever you have, and a 10mm and a 12mm socket. So what we'll do, we'll start up front getting it ready, and we'll pop out these 2 little plastic plugs just by getting under them and kind of working them side to side. And you won't need them, so you can just throw them away. Same with the back plug, throw it away. Then we'll pull this little protective cover for this little computer box. And then we're gonna save these bolts in this plastic cover because we're gonna put that back on again. Then we're gonna switch over to a 12 and we're gonna pull this little wire harness piece right here. Up. It always helps if you have a friend or two to help you get it centered while you get those first couple bolts started. But I'm using the lift to hold the back, and then I'm gonna start these front bolts, which are the last of the metric bolts that we supply in the kit, and they're gonna go into the actual threaded part of the frame right here. And then now that we got those bolts started, it's always best to start everything before you start tightening it. So I'm gonna get the 2 frontmost bolts in the frame with the nut plates here. But before I do that, I'll have to use my 12 and pull this little plastic cover on the inside real quick. Now that we got that out of the way, we can start and get these frontmost bolts in. You gotta really reach your arm in there. Just to help me out a little, I'm gonna do this and just tighten it a little bit more so that it's closer to the frame. So this will be actually the first little hole like this, but if you see, some of the holes are actually small enough that you don't have to use a whole nut plate. If it's not big, use one of the nylocks that we supplied rather than one of the nut plates, because you only have enough nut plates for them to go over the holes too big for a nut to go on. So this last one I just did was with a nut. Then I'll use another one. And this one will use a nut plate. And then I got another one with a nut. Another one with a nut. Another nut plate one. One more with the nut, and then another with a nut plate. The first bolts I'll tighten up are the ones that are threaded into the frame. Now I'm gonna tighten up just one of them, the frontmost one. And then once I have that one snug, I can adjust the gap between the pinch weld and the actual slider itself. Now I wanna make sure it's equal all the way across, which this one is about a perfect finger all the way down. So that lets me know I'm good to tighten up this other one. Put the little protective cover back on. What we'll do, we'll use a 14mm socket to tighten up the rest of the stuff. And it'll be really helpful if you have a second one on another ratchet for the ones that have a nut on the backside to hold the nut while you tighten from the bolt. So we're gonna start from the front and just work our way back with these 14mm bolts. This one is one that I'll have to use a wrench or a ratchet on the other side to hold it. Putting the last little plastic frame protector on the inside of the frame.
Well, dude, you made that look way too easy. Tell me, how'd it go?
Super easy, man. After we get that driver's side prepped and we get everything out of the way, the slider falls right into place, goes right on. Then the passenger side is definitely a breeze after that. So
Heck yeah.
it goes smooth every time.
Sweet. Well, hopefully you can do this at your house someday with a new set of RSG rock sliders. Thanks so much. And thank you, Bailey, for showing us. And we'll see you next time.